Greetings from Sefer Publishing Group, and welcome to another Sefer Moment. I'm Dr. Stephen Pidgeon, and today we're going to be talking about the very interesting subject of the Yajiyd. The Yajiyd. Now, this subject I think is going to prove to be very interesting. Some of you might believe that, or might remember, that there is a passage that has become very popular for a lot of us in John 3:16. And when you read the Sefer, you're going to be getting something different than what the normal passage that you've grown accustomed to in your typical English Bible. In fact, the Sefer reads like this: For Yah so loved the world, that he gave his Yajiyd, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but should have everlasting life. For Yah sent not his Yajiyd into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. Now, when we look at the use of this word Yajiyd, you might be asking yourself the question, what's that doing there? And what is that word? And I don't understand it, and why did you put it in? And the reason it has to do with a number of things. I mean, if you recall, the first time we see this term Yajiyd, it goes all the way back to Abraham, right? And with Abraham, you see that we have this. Now, this is in Genesis chapter 18, and you might recall this is the ordinance to sacrifice Yitzhak or Isaac. And this ordinance really happens in the way most people read it is, take your son, your only son, or your only begotten son, Isaac, and go to the high country and offer him on one of the mountains, which I will point out to you. Well, the difficulty there is that, of course, Isaac was not the only son of Abraham. That he had a son before, detailed in chapter 15, from Hagar, the stranger. And that son was named Ishmael. And that son came to be blessed, and his 12 sons and the 12 tribes thereof also came to be blessed in chapter 17 of the book of Genesis. Now, when we arrive at chapter 18, and we have this discussion of Isaac, take your son, your only begotten son, whom you love, even Yitzhak, and go to the high country and offer him on one of the mountains, which I will point out to you. Well, we decided to take a closer look at the Hebrew, and we said, well, wait a minute, what is that word there for only begotten? And the word there is this word, Yajiyd. Now, Yajiyd is Strong's Hebrew 3173, okay? Strong's Hebrew 3173, Yajiyd. And you know, you have this het in there, and so it's kind of Yajiyd. And this word has as its root another word, which is yajad. Yajad is again Strong's Hebrew 3161. Yajad means to become one, join, united. Yajad. Now, we use this word yajad. We use it in the Gospel of John, talking about being one with the Father. Yajad with the Father. And it's really kind of, if you look at the word, it's kind of a cross between Yah, the name of the Father, and of course, Echad, one. Yah Echad, Yajad. And so Yajiyd, it has to do with that same kind of concept that you're talking about, really somebody who is very united in soul, but you are talking about a child or someone similar to that. And so really, the word is best defined as the beloved one, or the beloved child, or the beloved son even, the beloved one. And so we looked at this and we said, well, you know what? We think Yajiyd is the better way to put this. And so in Genesis 18, it reads like this. And he said, take your Yajiyd, whom you love, even Yitzhak, and go to the high country and offer him on one of the mountains, which I will point out to you. And so you see that the idea of the Yajiyd now becomes pretty important. And now we use this word Yajiyd quite consistently. We use it again in chapter 18, referring to Yitzhak. We use it again where Rivka, that is to say Rebecca, is talking about her son Jacob, who we also know as Jacob, who became Israel. And in the book of Jubilees, in chapter 19, verse 27, it reads, Yaakov, my Yajiyd, whom my soul loves. May Elohim bless you from above the firmament, and may he give you all the blessings wherewith he blessed Adam and Hanok and Noach and Shem. And so you see that again, we're talking about the beloved one, the beloved son, the Yajiyd. So that when we get to where we're talking about, and of course there's all this discussion of Abraham and Yitzchak in the book of Yashar, but when we begin to talk about it, also Solomon makes a reference in Proverbs, in Mishlei, chapter 4, it reads like this, beginning from verse 1. Hear you children the instruction of a father, and attend to no understanding, for I give you good doctrine, forsake ye not my Torah. Verse 3, for I was my father's son, tender, and only Yajiyd in the sight of my mother, the beloved one in the sight of his mother. And Solomon, of course, is referring to himself at that point. So this Yajiyd, again, is not the only begotten son. That's the most important part about this Yajiyd. It's not the only begotten son. It means the beloved son. And so again, we see it again here in the second sefer of Kepha Sheni, 2 Peter for the English translations. And Kepha quotes him and quotes Yah as saying in verse 17 of chapter 1, for he received from Yahweh the Father honor and glory, when there came such a voice to him from the excellent glory, this is my Yajiyd with whom I am well pleased. This is my Yajiyd with whom I am well pleased. And again in John we see it in John 3:16 and in 3:17 and in 3:18. And so by faith Abraham, this is in the book of Hebrews in chapter 11, verse 17. By faith Abraham, when he was tried, offered up at Yitzchak, and he that had received the promises offered up his et Yajiyd, of whom it is said that in Yitzchak shall your seed be called. So, and of course it was, the seed was called Yaakov, who became Yasharel or Yisrael, and that the seed of Israel is declared to be the firstborn son. So you see that we can't really talk about the only begotten son when the term is Yajiyd. And so even in John 3:16, for Yah so loved the world that he gave his et Yajiyd. And so this makes a big difference in terms of what the Sefer says, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. For Yah sent not his et Yajiyd into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. And so it is that we use this word Yajiyd, and we also use the word yajad. And yajad, again, means united, joined together. And in this case, it means joined together with Yah. So, we see it in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 17, where in the Sefer it reads, but he that is joined to Yahweh is Yajad. He is one, he is unified. We see it again in the Gospel of John, the Besser of John, or Besser Yahukanan, in chapter 10, in verse 30, where Mashiach says, I and my Father are Yajad. I and my Father are Yajad. And in chapter 17, of course, the famous prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane, where it reads like this in verse 11, and now I am no more in the world, but these are in the world, and I come to you, Holy Father. Guard them by your name, the same name which you have given me. The same name which you have given me, that they may be Yajad as we are. And it goes on in verse 20 of that same chapter. Neither pray I for these alone, but for them also which shall believe on me through their words. That shall believe on me through their word, okay? That they may all be Yajad, as you, Father, are in me and I in you, that they may also be Yajad in us, that the world may believe that you have sent me. And the glory which you gave me, I have given them, that they may be yajad, even as we are yajad. Well, of course, we've had this long discussion about Philippians 2:11, about Yahuwah is Yahushua HaMashiach. We've talked about what that means in its theological content. We talk about what that means scripturally. We talk about what that means in terms of understanding the Shema Yisrael, Yahuwah Eloheinu Yahuwah Echad, that Yah is one, and what that means is how it is one. And here we have Mashiach saying that I come to you, Holy Father, guard them by your name, the same name which you have given me, that they may be Yahad as we are Yahad. So you see that these two words, Yajiyd and Yahad, became very important for us at the Ed Sefer. It may be a bit Hebraic, but we thought these words were standalone and sufficient enough in the weight of their own meaning to actually be used in the Hebrew to bring forward these concepts in this English text. There's other terms that we use, like Shabbat and other terms, but those are the terms that we think are going to be best for you. So I want to thank you for staying with me in this study. Come back and join us again for another Sefer moment. This is Dr. Stephen Pidgeon. Until we meet again, in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach.